Thank
Just
you.
gonna sit here so I can write notes.
Yeah, me too. I sit here. Thank you, Kathy. Carol, I'm sorry.
And Elaine.
Carol McCarthy and Elaine for hosting us. We've been travel from neighborhood to neighborhood, listening to most neighborhood that come out, if not all, want to hear how they feel about the current voting system. So there's no right or wrong. And this is not about the current lawsuit or the pending lawsuit. We are not here to talk about that. We just want to hear how you feel about the current voting system. Councilor Leahy and I and Councilor.
Can you speak up, please?
Okay,
Can you speak up?
sure. Councilor
Thank you.
Leahy and Councilor Kennedy, all three of us on the subcommittee have been committed to get out to every neighborhood as best as we can to hear from you. How you feel about the current voting system. So, go ahead. I leave it to you and just state
I
your
asked
name.
that. I've often called our section of the city, and even when I presented myself before you, the forgotten section of the city.
You never forgot.
No, well, I know, but I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, I've had several people campaigning through the neighborhood now and saying, oh my gosh, no one ever comes to our area to even campaign. Very few do. So the ones who do, I actually will vote for them, because they've taken the initiative to come through this section of the city. And I said, the only time you really ever seem to think of this section of the city is when something like a bad and negative business would come into the area, like Tanner Street. Right away, it's Tanner Street, oh, there it is, that area over there. So I just think that when you're looking at the council board, there's no one representing. And I know as a whole, you do represent the whole city, but I still think there are those perks and those quirks that you get when you have a city councilor in your neck of the woods. You know, so I just think that we're underrepresented here. I think that we struggle harder, I think, to get things that we would like to see improvements in this area. I mean, take example of splash pad. With Elaine's group, thank God we band together because we're a little bit stronger having two groups band together. But it took us almost 4 to 5 years to even get the recognition to get rid of the pool that was there and to get a splash pad in. And it seemed that every time there was an election, the ones that were helping us were unelected, and then it was starting again. So it's like, I don't know. I just feel that there's got to be another process out there.
How did you get it to happen this time?
How did it happen this time? Well, we just kept plugging and plugging, and finally my issue was, someone's going to get hurt there. And I says, I know I'm a city, I am a taxpayer, but I would be the first one to stand there and say to them, I've been before the city telling them someone's going to get hurt. They break in there all the time. Someone's going to either get injured or drown in that little bit of water that's there, and I'll help you sue the city since they're not listening to us.
Well, thank you for
So
being
we
persistent.
show the odds of the safetiness to a splash pad versus a swimming pool. And all you need is a lifeguard that puts a Band-Aid on somebody if they get injured. No one can drown there. So I mean, so we just keep plugging and plugging and plugging for something at this end of the city for these kids.
I see.
And I mean, the
Can I
parents would
just
have to-
jump in for one quick thing? We don't want you to feel forgotten,
Yeah.
but don't feel like you're alone though either, because when they put the splash pad over at Shed Park,
Yeah.
that took a long time too.
Oh, I know it did.
But I mean, they had to fundraise
Yeah.
too. We told them,
Yeah.
I wasn't involved then, but they told them, there's no money. And they had to organize like you do, and they had fundraisers, and they gave a check to the city. So you're really not alone, but
But see now, and they have a park that they could fundraise. We don't even have a park yet.
okay. But my
So
point
was
is
it.
that
And I
they have to
understand
do
that,
the
yes.
work,
Because we did the same thing.
Yeah.
We were going around to the businesses, asking
Yeah.
the businesses if they would help us.
Sure.
Will you help donate money so that we can make this
Yeah.
happen, create this to happen?
Yeah.
We couldn't do I love the dances that they did at
Yeah.
Shed Park. I love that, but we don't have,
Yeah.
and we never did have.
Yeah.
I mean, the only
Oh,
ballpark
I know,
we
and
have is
I
Manning Field.
understand that totally.
I
what
know.
you're saying.
Once
And that's it, so I mean, I think one time I was down at the Parks Department, and we were talking about redoing the parks, and I was saying, we don't have a park here. One guy called me an idiot. And then when he sat down and looked later on, he goes, oh my God, I gotta apologize to you. You don't have a park.
Yeah.
I says, thank you. No, we
Yeah.
don't have a park.
But every once in a while, we need a wake-up call. When I first got on the council, Nancy Judge said to me, you guys never come to the meetings. And I said, well, you know, I can't argue with that. I said, sometimes you need to wake us up and say, hey, you guys need to come to meetings. And we've been going to the meetings, you know? And honestly, yeah, I haven't been to any of your meetings. I don't know if they happen or, sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't, right?
We
But-
only have them on emergencies now.
Yeah,
because
so we would, once in a while, you need to call us and wake us up and say, come. But we have, you know, we've tried our best, like we've worked on Moore Street, we've had, motions about that. That needs to still be addressed with the sewer when you get a heavy rain,
No, it's
thing
not
of
as bad
floods.
since you paid.
Right.
Not as bad. but-
Right, and, you know, we just kinda helped the street over here out. It was a stupid little thing, but we got it lined, because people were coming in all directions, everything was saying it's a two-way
Yeah.
street. So they finally painted some lines. So I
That's what
understand
we're
what you're saying, but
it's
don't be
little
afraid to
things.
call us and say, we really, you know, don't forget us over here because we need this, but, you know, we are in all the sections, and I understand what you're saying totally, but,
It's a miracle to see us
Yeah.
when you're here.
yeah.
So that's.
You know
Well,
what
this is
happens,
good,
John?
yeah.
You know what
It is.
happens though, John, is that I've been living in the neighborhood for 31 years now.
Yep.
And, it's fine. You know, if something happens, you come into the neighborhood, maybe you come to a few neighborhood meetings, but
Yeah.
then you lose your election next time and you decide not to run. Now, we got nobody, we've gotta start
Right.
all over again.
Right,
If
exactly.
we had somebody that represented our section of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
that would be, we would expect that person to
Sure.
always be there at the meeting, no matter
Yeah.
who they were.
Yeah.
Okay, and we could go to that person, because we know that
Yeah.
they're our
Sure,
representative.
sure. I would say too, just pick one of us and call us all the time, because that's what
Talk to
happens too, you know?
In there itself is, you can't pick one of us, now, not to,
Sure.
I'm gonna tag on what Carol said,
Yeah.
because I'm in South Lowell, we're in South Lowell, and it's, we are the forgotten neighborhood, I mean, nothing happens in South Lowell, which is a good thing. And on the other hand, when we need things like paving, I can't tell you the last time we got paved. Woburn Street got paved, and that was, I mean, that took an act of Congress to get Woburn Street paved. And the only reason why that happened was because
Yeah.
that's a gateway into the city off of 495. But, when you have most of your counselors living in one section of the city, that city, when I was working, I used to cut through that particular end of the city to get to Andover, and there was paving going on all the time. And little dinky streets that couldn't have more than 2 or 3
Yeah.
houses on it, they're getting paved. When my street, you're looking at my street, I've been there 33 years, I mean, you can pick up the concrete, you can pick up the
Yeah.
pavement, it's all crumbled. And I've
And,
called.
and I agree with you, because we've said at meetings too lately, we've said, look, sometimes you can't go by the index, all right? You can't, just because a street doesn't have 50 cars a day going down it, doesn't mean it doesn't need to be paved. Like Quimby Street off of Chelmsford Street bugs me, and that's just one example I know of, because it's a little side street and it's a mess. But they'll never pave it because it doesn't meet the index. But these are the things we're trying to change too. And, you know, I take blame for this too, but if you call me, I'll get right back to you. If you call Vesner, I know he does too. But let's, you know, this is a good new beginning tonight too, so.
I think
you can call.
Not to interrupt you, but there was a list put together by the city prioritizing
Right.
streets.
Right.
And I don't know where we even stand with that list.
I mean, at time, certainly there's a list, also an index
Yeah.
that John talking about, but also if that street really deplorable, council can file a motion to move the other street on top to get it done as well. And that, you've done that in some of the streets.
There was an example this year, someone called for a
Right.
street
Right.
right off of Middlesex that goes along the mobile gas station.
Right.
And we have a new DPW director. We called them up, and the street was pretty bad. And even to my surprise, they paved it within 3 months. And I said, this has never happened before. And the new guy, Jim Donaldson, said, well, it was in real bad shape. We weren't gonna just patch it. So there's a new philosophy down there, you know, and hopefully this is gonna go.
Right.
They do try to stay in sections,
Right.
Yeah.
so it's easier for the equipment, and they may be over in one section all summer, and then next year, so, yeah, they don't get to you for 4 or 5 years, which is not right or not wrong, right, but, you know, let's try to change that and, see what happens.
Allow me to do this, recognize with us as well as Councilor Karen Srello.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Right, I know that we deviated a little bit from the topic we here tonight. I'd like to come back and revisit the issue. And again, like John said, anytime you have, I'll leave my number, John too, and I'm sure Karen as well. Give us a call if you need any, there's things that you need to get done or things that you want us to know. Feel free to do that. Before we leave tonight, we're going to leave you our number.
Okay.
I'm certainly going to leave you my cell phone number. So let's get back to the topic that we hear tonight. That is your feeling about the current voting system. I hear that right now in terms of I'm the representative. You want your representative that way. You know who that person is. You can go to that person and all that. So anybody else?
I just want to say it. I'm from Lowell Alliance, and we came on Friday and Saturday, and we went to all the businesses with the flyers, and we asked about if they know the city councilors, and none of them say I don't know them. You know, I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about City Hall, and I feel so concerned because it's like community. The community have to know, who are you, where are you, and they do not know. We went to businesses, and with a flyer, and to invite them to come to this meeting, right? Nobody want to do anything. They say, I don't know them. They haven't done anything for us. So it is true. It's being forgotten. It is not only this part. That's not the part of the community. The community is everyone that lives here in this community. And I feel so bad, so concerned that they don't know the city councilors. They don't know you. Say, no one come here, to help us. We don't know. So, and I say it had to be changed. Had to be changed. Had to the city councils had to come over here and go through the neighborhood. And say, here we are, okay? We represent you. Here we are. So that is my because the whole day on Saturday, we went to businesses, okay? And we, the flyers. Here is the flyer to invite you to the meeting, all right? And no one knew anything about it, and no one sometimes and they do not know anything about all the events that happen in Lowell, not even the Lowell Fest. So, and because I'm asking, and it's true because I'm myself that went to businesses, and I said, we going to send you or email just to let you know what's going on downtown Lowell to your city. So there's something has to be done. It is true. These people here is forgetting. I'm sorry to tell you because I just want this way. That is my experience that I have.
Could I just ask a question? Do you live in Lowell?
I live in Lowell.
Awesome. Where part of Lowell do you live in? Just curious.
Downtown.
Downtown. Only because Elaine Pantano and I have run a neighborhood group here since 1992.
Something like that.
Since 1992, and we used to have meetings every single month. We would get the word out, but you know what the problem happened? The neighbors got used to knowing who the key people in the neighborhood were, and they would call us, and they said, well, we're having a meeting. And Elaine would say, we're having a meeting. Well, you can just take care of it, right? And that's what ended up happening. They stopped coming to the meetings. We would have the city councilors there, we would introduce them, and we would look silly because we'd have the city councilors, and we'd be Elaine and I, and just a few of the neighbors, and we say, well, this neighbor said this, and in fact, I got a long list to give you from a lot of neighbors, and where are they today? They knew this meeting was happening. The businesses know me. I've been up and down the street with business for the splash pad. They know we run meetings. We told them we run meetings. They know where I live. I mean, they knock on my door and say, oh yeah, you are still here. you are the neighborhood person, well, here's a list of things we'd like you to do for us.
I'm sure there are things we could do better as a city, as a council, but also the responsibility also lie on that business owner as well. I mean, it sounds like that way, you can't like relinquish responsibility. You have a responsibility as well. One cannot shut the responsibility to the council, to the city alone. I mean, it sounds like that. I mean, because Carol has been leading this neighborhood for such, what, 20-something years already, since I know you.
Elaine and I, and that's why we combined the two neighborhoods together, because our issues were the same, and rather than having you come to two meetings,
Right.
you come to one meeting,
Right.
and we hit the two issues. So Elaine's been running as
Right.
long as I have.
Right. So that does not dismiss the facts that that Carol spoke of about wanting representation from here, you know, and so that does not dismiss that, but I also want us to say that responsibility also lie on businesses and residents as well to come out and be heard. Because it's not too often you get a council who want to hear, especially now because maybe so because the pending lawsuit, but pending lawsuit aside, we want to hear before we do something about it, right?
Yeah, look, Carol,
Yes.
do you think having a representative for this area on the city council would change
I
the
like-
current apathy
I did.
that's
I
in the community?
I like the year that it was going on the board, but city council's vote in favor of deny it, and they voted down. I'm not too sure if I agree with term. The city council should sit for 2 years on the board, then maybe take a year or so off and then run again. Maybe that change of pace will work. But I think if we do have a good working city council, it's good, but I just think that this section of the city is misrepresented. I mean, when you look and see where 2/3 of the city councils come from, look where they are. Not here. And I'm not putting down our city councils, I'm not putting these down. I'm just saying that
Right.
I really feel that if we did have a sitting city council in this section, oh boy, we would know where to get them and say, we need to fight for us, we need more of this. Like, one of the issues we've been fighting with, and I know it starts with the city council but goes up, is the train issue. The train issue in our area. You know, they are still idling past they're still idling past their time. We don't have a single phone number that we can call to say, okay, the trains have been there now, they've been idling for 3 hours, what happened to the law that said they can't idle past 1 hour? And it's still going on, and I keep saying, help them.
And Carol and I worked on this train issue for years before the spill. And if it wasn't for that spill, that's when we got action. That's when we had the city council.
That's because the Boston TV stations had something to put on film.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
and I don't like them up there for
Sadly,
that.
it took a spill.
Well,
Takes a disaster.
I feel that you have a city council now that wants to be more open, wants to have more community engagement, be more transparent. So I think that there's a shift in the city council that we currently have, and I think that's important to mention. And yes, I think that and it shows that there's a shift, because I'm a city councilor from Centerville, you have city councilor from the Highlands, city councilor from Belvedere, so I think it's starting to be more diverse throughout the city, because I find that we had, I think, 4 candidates from Centerville who ran for city council, and so I feel that there is going to be more there is
But
starting
there's
to be
no one
more
from
engagement.
this section
Right,
of the
no,
city.
and I understand.
And I'm not putting
yes.
any of our
No,
city
I-
councils down, because
No, and I
when we have,
understand
only
that.
because, I mean, you were saying a shift now, I feel like, I don't like that attack, because anytime I've called Bessner, he's reacted, anytime I call John, he's acted,
Oh, yeah.
but it's still like, oh, you're up and over there, you're up in Highlands, you're here. It's like, I think that if we had, you know,
We
just
need
like,
district
we do,
representation.
just like the neighborhood group.
That's what we need.
When, I mean, you weren't here, I don't know how long you've been in Lowell, but you weren't here when the neighborhood groups formed. One of the reasons we formed was prostitution throughout the streets, dilapidated buildings, and what we did, a whole group of us just sat down, took a map of the city of Lowell, and we marked it all out. Okay, that's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, let's go get them.
Good.
And we got 'em. And I mean, the city council was so receptive.
Before I recognize you, let me recognize that Councilor Kennedy is a member of the election law subcommittee. He's also present, joining us right now. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, so, my name's Jacob. I've lived in this neighborhood for 8 or 9 years.
Yes.
And I completely agree with what's being said right now. The problem is that the city council right now is looking to change, looking to fix this. That's not a permanent solution. A permanent solution is having some kind of representation, maybe keeping a few at-large districts, and just figuring out how to map districts to this area. I mean, it's great that everyone's here right now listening, but if we have one number to call for our issues, that's more important than anything. Because I had no idea about this until I was out canvassing. And and if there was an issue that came up, I might end up calling you, and just the calls would be spread out. And as my time in another political organization showed me, that you really need a concentrated effort to get someone's attention on your issue. And that's what I think is most important about this election, or about reforming the elections in the city of Lowell.
Thank you, Jacob. Anybody else?
Can I just add?
Yes,
one
John.
thing?
Go ahead, John.
So, one thing that I wanted to add too is, I think we have to change the philosophy on both sides, because when you say, it'd be nice to have one person to call from around here, I agree with that. But if you look at it now, you have 9 people to call too. So don't forget that, because we've called Congresswoman Eileen, Nikki Songers's office, and she can't even get through to these trained people. So you can imagine how frustrated we are and you are, and she can't even do anything.
But she has. Nikki saw, I am so.
But I mean, I go to
upset that
George's
she's
all the
signing
time,
down.
and
Yes.
I see the trains idling on Lawrence Street, and I call and we call, and we can't get anything done. And George tells me all the time
It's
too.
because we dropped the ball. We run hot and heavy for a while, and then we drop the ball, and we don't keep pursuing it because
Yeah, but
there
you
there
would
is an
think that
ordinance,
once
they
they
should be.
do it, they should
but there
be
is-
fine.
they should be
doing what they
But they should be
Right,
fined.
they do what they
Hold on
wanted.
until somebody else finish, if you please.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, they
Go
do
ahead,
what they
Councilor
wanted,
Leahy.
it's tough.
Go ahead.
Well, I really wanted to extend on Jacob's thing there about district representation. He mentioned that there's no defined boundaries. Well, yeah, there is. There's 11 precincts in the city, okay? There's 15 city elected officials. You've got 6 city council, 6 school committee, and 9 councilors. I have thought this a bit. I haven't thought it completely through. I'm not an expert on this kind of thing, so bear with me a bit. But my thought is that we combine the school committee and the city council into one body. We elect 11 district representatives, from 1 from each precinct. That leaves 4 at-large seats. You have the at-large, you have a mayor that has to be elected from the city council under Plan E, unless we change that, which I've heard some rumors that there's some people out pursuing that idea. The mayor, in my schema, would be from the 4 at-large, because the mayor represents the entire city, the at-large councilors represent the entire city. They're elected through the entire city. The school committee would be made up of the 4 at-large, because the school system is a citywide, and then elect, rotate 2 other members, I'm sorry, 3 other members, to make up the total of 7, because the mayor would be a part of the 4 at-large.
Yeah, the thing is too is that at this point, we haven't really, I mean, I know we went to other neighborhood meeting. The idea brought up as to, you know, what you talk about, district was a hybrid kind of district at large or proportional and all that. The mechanic of what it looked like, we have not delved into it as a council. We, right now, just going out to listen to whether or not there's change needed, and then what the type of change we will have the dialogue around that type of change at a later time. I hear you. I hear what you have to say. Councilor Candy, go ahead.
Thank you. It's interesting that you bring that up. I proposed almost that exact scheme back in 1979, and I did not do it. That would have had a 15-member city council with district councilors, with at-large councilors, and the at-large councilors, along with the mayor, would constitute the school committee. And I did not do it because of representation. I did it because at the time, which would have been like 1979, 1980, the school committees had fiscal autonomy. And so the feeling was, at least my feeling was, that they were not being fiscally responsible. And so if there were people that were on the city council that had to deal with the budget and the school department budget, then the school committee could remain fiscally, there could be fiscal autonomy, but they would be responsible and would be able to see the entire picture. And when I proposed it, the Lowell Sun, which was the editorial person at the time was Clemmy Costello, thought it was a good idea. Unfortunately, most of the members of the city council didn't think it was a good idea, and so it didn't go anywhere. But I just wanted to point out one thing that was given to me by the city solicitor, actually. There were, several years ago, I guess, there was a proposal to put a transfer station in South Lowell. I don't know.
Transportation?
The trash transfer,
Yeah.
yeah. Tanner Street, yeah, we remember that.
And that was going to be very lucrative to the city for two reasons. One is that they would be contributing to the commercial tax base and paying real estate taxes. But on top of that, they probably would have paid more money as part of a host agreement. So it was going to be lucrative for the city to have them. If there had been all district councilors, probably a majority of the district councilors, because the transfer station would not be in their neighborhood, would have voted for the transfer station. And South Lowell would have been stuck with the transfer station. In other words, a majority of the district councilors would have just jammed it down the neighborhood's throat. As it turned out, because all of the councilors are at large, and because all of the 9 councilors represent South Lowell as well, the transfer station failed. And so it wasn't there. Now, you know, I'm not making that as an argument to for or against district councilors, but I do think that story tells you to be careful about which way you go on this and what you do going forward. It's really important to play it out and see what the result's gonna mean, because you could end up with a result that you're very unhappy with. And to undo it, once we do make a change, will take several years. It's not something that you can say, all right, we made a mistake here, let's just undo this. It isn't like that. You'd have to go through the whole process of
It would involve a charter change, I would assume.
yeah.
Yeah. Either way, either to do it and to undo it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me get somebody else before I go back to you, Elaine. Anybody else have anything to say? How they feel about the current voting system? Marty, anything? We're gonna go to your neighborhood on August 1st, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm here to see how this is all going out, but Centerville Neighborhood Association, I came over here just to see what this is gonna be like. Some of you know I ran for city council last time around. I'm for changing the charter and having an at-large and districted system. The only reason I'm saying is because of the representative part of it. It is true, I believe, that there is a chance that you take that some of the issues will go against you because you have a disproportionate balance. I think in the end, both systems work for certain things, but I think when it comes to representation, you really need somebody in your area. And what that area is defined as is very tough because, as you said, it could be 11 districts, it could be, but there are some people that could be in your district that don't identify as being in your district. Things of that sort. So, but I'm personally for changing it to an at-large system with districted members. I was always for placing a mayor, an elected mayor instead of an appointed mayor, because then you don't have just, 5 to 4 or whatever it is, deciding who the mayor is. You have an actual elected person. But that's just my personal feeling. As far as the CMAGs, I don't speak for them. I'm just here to see how this was all working. That's
Right.
just me personally. But thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with that completely. I mean, I think that the city of Lowell has got incredible diversity. And that diversity does not dwell in Belvedere. That diversity is spread through the city. And the more you can get representation from the various diverse communities in the city, the stronger this city is going to become. So I think it becomes very, very important for this city to really become much more inclusive than exclusive. I'm convinced that there needs to be a change in the way there's representation.
Anybody else? All right, Jameson, go ahead.
So, I've been to several of these meetings. I'm actually from Cambridge, so I'm coming because I'm interested in voting systems, and I've studied voting systems. And I'm here to sort of like raise consciousness about the idea of proportional representation, because what people are saying is you need representation from the neighborhoods, and you also need diversity, and a lot of the reason we're even here is because of the lawsuit, and I know we can't go into the details too much about the lawsuit because it's pending. But the lawsuit is about representing all the communities, not geographic, but ethnic, and those ethnic communities are actually have certain geographic centers to some degree, but they're not like all in one neighborhood. There's it would be very hard to draw a line around like all the Hispanic people in Lowell and none of the it just doesn't work like that. And so with proportional representation, you can get actually representation for the neighborhoods and also for other communities defined in other ways, whether it be ethnic, whether it be professional, whatever it's about, whatever community, however people define themselves and make their own group politically, that group, if it's big enough, if it rises to like 1/9 or 1/10 of the city, can elect their own representative. And even if they don't, they can, they have a focus to organize, they have a way to come together and become a political force. Even if they don't necessarily win, they still have a bigger voice. So I think I just wanted to get that idea out there as an important one that could help this conversation.
Thank you. Cambridge has proportional representation.
Yes, it does.
And how long does it take them do they have software to count their votes?
Yes, they do. They got that in about 2001. So they had the system since, I don't know, the 40s. But so they've only had the software since relatively recently. And developing that software, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a very reasonable amount of money it took to, they have the Optech Eagle vote scan machines, and just to do a software update so that they could get the information they needed out of those was less than a year and a 5-figure amount of money, not nothing crazy.
Can I just ask a question, a cross question?
Go ahead.
Because I don't know much about that. I've heard of it being from Boston. I've heard a lot about it in Cambridge. But my question is as far as that goes, is that like, how is it that they define people, like groups?
So the way it works in Cambridge is on your ballot, you rank the candidates. You don't just vote for one.
Okay.
One, and then so again, just like Lowell, there's a 9-member council, so that means 1/10 of the city, because there's like always gonna be one group that like, there's one group for each winner,
Yeah,
and there's
it's
one group that loses, like,
Yeah.
you can't possibly not have any losers.
Yeah, it's a fractional, yeah.
But so 1/10 is the number it takes to win. So you just like eliminate candidates and move the votes along until each winner gets a 10. And if they have any extra, you keep moving those votes along too. And so you make sure that 90% of the people get represented and only 10% lose, instead of like the system in Lowell where you could easily have like 50% who might, a lot of them be from one neighborhood, win all 9 seats, and then everybody else, like the other 50%, just lose all 9 seats, right? Like lose that time after time. Of course, it doesn't work like that, for 100% of the seats, but it works like that for more than half a lot of the time.
Thank you, James. I want to come back to Elaine.
Yeah, well, if there is no change and it's at large as it is, which probably will happen, but at any rate, to assign city councilors a neighborhood or two. We have 9 city councilors, we have 11 districts. So South Lowell, it's Sacred Heart, we're small, you could combine that.
We don't mind sharing.
The people who live here can identify with the city councilor and will know who to go to when there's an issue or a problem. I think that would go a long way to solve some of those problems. Because, if you're going to this one and I'm going to this one and you're going, you got so many people here contacting different city councilors
And not that, because sometimes I feel that if you call one or another, it's safer to call just maybe one city council and have that conversation going between them, rather than say, okay, no, I'm gonna call Amy now, I'm gonna call this one now. And just, I feel that when people, see, it's a teacher coming out now, I feel that when people do that, it's like, well, I'm gonna play on this and see, what does he say compared to what she'll say?
Yes.
And what will she tell me that maybe he might tell me? I don't want that, because then that puts us so far behind. But yet, so I have you, okay, so John, I say, John, you're representing Sacred Heart and Riverside. Okay, these are the issues that are coming up now, John, okay? So could you just take this forward for us? So that I don't feel like I'm stabbing you in the back either, but I'm gonna call Vesta now, just to see what Vesta will say, to see if John said the same thing.
But
And that's why I
let me-
think some people do.
But let me add this too, don't forget this. Everybody has an ego on life. When you get elected,
Oh, I
you got a
know.
big ego.
Oh, I
So if you
know.
call Vesna and you call me, I'm worried that he's gonna outdo me. So I'm working hard to outdo him. He's working hard to outdo. Well, it's human nature.
He's running for something.
It's human nature,
And
so,
I know it's human nature, but you know what, in order for our city,
yeah.
and I've said it, I told, when we had a meeting finally, Don and you, I says, how can we put up a Berlin Wall on the outskirts of our city and keep channel 4, 5, and 7 out of our city? I'm tired of them coming here when a negative thing happens.
No.
I want them here for the folk festival. I want them here when we have that
Right.
Beam and Barrel, whatever festival downtown. I want them here to see the positiveness of
Yeah.
Lowell. And they're not here to show us all.
But that's something we have to be reminded of and call
But
and
not
drag
us,
it.
but I mean, you see it on the TV all the time,
Yeah.
and boy, it's out
Yeah, 3
there.
o'clock this
I know.
morning.
Yeah. so,
But
I mean,
bad publicity sells, good stuff is
well,
like, eh.
But they do the good things of what
Yeah.
happens in Boston too. Why can't we
Yeah.
bring them up here
Well,
and say,
we'll make an
look at all
effort
the cool things that are
to do
happening
that,
here
yeah.
in our city. I
Yeah.
want you here to see this.
Yeah, and one other thing too, just to let you know, a little trick that we do too is, you might get an issue, and when you wanna present it to the council and the city council and the manager on Tuesday night, a little trick that we do is you learn, is you say, I've got several calls on this, and then the manager will perk up. If I say, I talked to Carol about this, and she'd say, oh, yeah, we'll get to that. But if I say, I went to the neighborhood meeting, and about 10 people brought this up to me, then they perk up and they listen. So that's a little trick that we do too.
And one thing that we started too was petitioning you, rather than call you, is we're gonna make a petition up, and we're gonna stand before your council, and we're gonna present a petition
Yeah.
for you. Now you're gonna hear us.
Yeah.
Because now
I mean,
I
the,
get the floor.
And now we got a list of names that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The email system does work pretty good,
Right.
and it seems to be working better and better every year. So don't be afraid to use that too.
Thank you, Councilor Lee.
I'm not as big a fan of the email system for this reason. I really think it's a lot more effective if you call one city councilor and have that city councilor address it. What sometimes happens, I think, is that when you send an email to all 9 city councilors, if a city council is busy, then he'll give you one or the other. You send it to everybody, so one of the others will take care of it. And then sometimes what can
And I
happen
think that
is
needs to be stopped.
nobody takes care of it, right? Because everybody thinks something else is doing it. Or somebody calls you back on it, and then they realize you've already called 3 or 4 other counselors on it, so they're probably taking care of it. So I really think you're better off if you just call one city council and you just work with that one city council, no matter who it is. And I would think that of all 9, you're gonna get just about the same from any of the 9.
Because I know in the beginning, I think even with the police department, thought that the neighborhood group leaders, how can I put it, didn't like us. I don't think some of the police department didn't like us. Thought that we were trying to tell you how to do your job. When what it was is it was that little battle until I think that wall came down, and then they found out, oh, wait a minute, they're just here working with us to help us see where these areas are. So, and I mean, there's been a lot of change since our groups first started, which is nice, and I can still see at times a tussle with the city councilors. And I mean, it's
I
a
think-
joke at times.
The way that it kind of works is that you call, the city council calls you, and then you say, listen, I got somebody screaming down my street at 2 o'clock in the morning. They do it every night, and it's way too fast and it's dangerous. No matter who the city councilor is, they're not gonna call the police chief because they're not supposed to. So they call the city manager. So, and it's the city manager ultimately that is going to solve the problem. And the city manager basically will do that for any of the 9 city councils.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Anybody else want to share their thought?
Could I just
Go ahead,
share
Mr.
one
Kennedy.
thought?
Sure.
One more thought. Proportional representation, Lowell had proportional representation until what year?
1957.
1957, and then did away with it. But the reason I asked about the software is I think, I'm not sure why they did away with it at that time, but I think one of the reasons was that it took a real long time to count the ballots. Because they were doing it by hand. And then what would happen is if there was a vacancy, they had to go back and do the ballots all over again. So take them all out, count them all over again, which took a long, long time. But if the software, then Cambridge is probably doing that in, what, a couple of hours or an hour or something, they probably do it relatively.
I mean, they do have to bring all the ballots to a common location, so that actually takes, I mean, you know, I don't know exactly how long, but it takes probably a day, but, you know, like, just
Even
to
with the
like.
software?
I mean, not the actual counting the ballots, but just to like have them all in the common location in order to, like, if there's any issues, have them all there to address that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know exactly, but, you know, like the chain of custody on the ballots is, they have to be super careful with that, of course. So I mean, I don't think it takes a full 24 hours, but it takes, you know, like, till the
When
next.
do you know you get elected?
What?
When do you know you get elected?
When they finish counting.
When they finish
Yeah.
counting, I mean, you know,
They
so
count
it's.
the ballots, but it used to be, that it would be at least a day. But with the software, I was expecting that it would be much quicker, but maybe it still takes a long time.
It's pretty quick. I mean, you know, like, basically, it's a matter of they have to bring the ballots all.
Which is what we do.
Yeah.
But then when they count them, I mean, does everybody know by midnight or by 11 o'clock or something like that? You're not sure?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but they know by the next morning, like, you know,
Yeah.
like business
Okay.
hours next morning, that it's all done.
No, Rex
Rex at
five.
party, Rex at party
So,
time.
and another name for proportional representation would be ranked voting, right?
Yeah, well, that's one of the forms. There's actually several ways to do it, but I mean, you know, that's definitely a good option.
That's what Cambridge
That's
does.
what Cambridge does.
Yeah.
Consider Saturday votings. And that would help her with getting volunteers.
Considering
Saturday
Saturday
vote.
voting.
That way
You know-
you're not in the schools, you don't have to worry
Right.
about
We've
closing the school
had-
down, just look at Saturday voting.
We've had that brought up to us also to vote on Saturday.
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times,
Yeah.
and a lot of the
Yes.
towns do vote on Saturdays, which seems to work out for them, although you do see a lot of towns where they can vote on Saturday, and the turnout is still dismal.
So
You know, they still have a very, very bad turnout, but I think that in order for Lowell to be able to go to Saturday voting, that we would probably have to change the state law, and I'm not sure of that, but I think that every city in the Commonwealth votes on Tuesday, so there's a reason for that.
And I believe it's towns that are designated as towns, they can do the Saturday.
Yeah.
Because I lived in a town and that's how we always did our
Yeah.
voting,
So yeah,
Saturday.
town meeting could be
Also-
designated
Town
on a
meeting,
Tuesday.
yeah.
And a different time of the year too.
Right. Ours was always April.
All right, all right.
I was gonna say also consider early voting, you know, maybe like a 2-week window
Right.
for voting.
That,
Absentee
that was
ballots,
also
so that's-
brought up as
Well,
well.
I mean, you couldn't do it like in the schools like we do now, or in the, you know, I mean, it would have to be a central location, City Hall or something like that. Except maybe one day have it, kind of like the open voting day,
Right,
something like on that idea.
thank you. City?
Yeah, and for me, I'm from the Acre neighborhood, so I'm pretty optimistic that the election law will change. But I don't think a lot of issues that we are telling the councilors tonight will move a lot. I like it when the councilor come to the neighborhoods because they need to hear the issues within the neighborhoods. If they were doing this in the first place, we wouldn't try to change the election law or anything like that. Because this is what's happening, is that there's a lot of issues within the neighborhoods, and some of the forgotten neighborhoods, like here, you know, but at the same time, there's a deeper culture within the city of Lowell that even though you have issues, even though the motion's moving in, but there's a lot of things behind that your street might be not paved, your street might not, you know, might not be fixed within 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So this is sort of like the first step into it, but at the same time, you know, I like it, and I hope also that while you're here or moving forward, somebody should be listing all the grievances that the neighborhood's given to you, and sort of like compile a list of all the stuff going on, you know, at the same time fixing all the issues, you know, within the community. Because, I mean, they given up their time as well, and you've given up your time, you know, because I've done all of this. You know, part of doing my work life, I talk to a lot of neighborhoods and residents regarding their issues. One single issue, you have to push so hard to get it done. For example, just to pave the road, almost a year to just pave the road. And, you know, so therefore, it could be money, it could be, you know, staffing shortage, but there's a lot of things. But in regarding to this election here, I'm saying that if even though it could change in the future into district or party district, party at large, a lot of issues will still need a lot of pushing from the residents to get it done. And at the same time is that we need to do more of this to get the issues resolved. Because it took me 2 hours to travel between all the neighborhoods. I mean, there was 11 neighborhoods, there's 9 neighborhoods, I don't know which one's the right answer, you know, but I drove from Highland, Belvedere, Centralville, Pawtuckaville, all over to the, you know, the Belvedere neighborhood. So I took a picture of it. So if you drive down Andover Road, and then if you turn right into a Belvedere neighborhood, you look at all the beautiful, but at the same time, there's no pavement, there's actually sidewalk and crosswalks not painted that much. But if you cross over to the Lower Belvedere neighborhood, you look like a skyline on the street all over the place. You ask yourself, why is this happening? So I don't know the answer, but I can think, you know, the answer to that. But at the same time, there's a neighborhood that really need a crosswalk because kids are not safe walking the street, crossing the street. But at the same time, there's neighborhoods within the city. So that's why we're here, is that it's not balanced between all the 9 or 11 neighborhoods you're saying. But again, I think whether we have a 9-member that's at large, but this should have been done a long time ago, like the councilor coming down to neighborhood, instead of the resident going, you know, people keep saying, we have a date and time and place, why don't you show up? That's what they're saying. You know the time, you know the place, you should come. But why are you not going to them? You know that these people, like my group of people, we're from a country where we don't, associate a lot with official. We don't do a lot of that. Even a lot of people not from my country, from their own country, they trying to get away. But this is what we need. If this is thing happening a long time ago, I mean, the system shouldn't be changed anyway, but you know what I'm saying?
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Maybe we could be doing more or do it better, but I should point out that just about every neighborhood has a neighborhood group. And they hold meetings just about monthly except during the summer. And for the most part, I believe, many city councilors go to those meetings. In addition to that, the city council has a subcommittee just dedicated to the neighborhoods. And that subcommittee meets sometimes in City Hall, but oftentimes will go out into the neighborhood and have meetings out there.
Right, I understand that also, but if you're looking at the neighborhood group, look at the member, most of the members been there years and years. So therefore, all the memberships are almost the same. Some of them been there 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. And so therefore, if you look at the residents, I mean, the average people living in each residence, I don't know, probably less than that. So therefore, people need more outreach, even the neighborhood themselves should do more outreach into their residents and neighborhoods.
That's true, but just because a neighborhood group has people that have been there for a long time, those are people that have maybe lived in the neighborhood for a long time and have an interest in the neighborhood interest. That is not a reason why other people should go to those meetings.
Right.
And if they did, that group would become stronger. You know, in my opinion, probably the strongest of the neighborhood groups is Pawtucketville's. And that's because they have the best attendance. So that if you go to one of their meetings, you can be sure that there's going to be a pretty good crowd. A bigger crowd than I would see at any other neighborhood meeting, including Belvedere. Belvedere has theirs in just a little classroom in the school. And, all the seats aren't even filled. They may have 10, 12 people sometimes, not that often. But Pawtucketville generally, not all the time, but they seem to be stronger and more unified than the other neighborhood groups. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I think there should be a little bit more relationship between the council and also with the neighborhood groups, just to help them go on and say, you know what, we're coming to your neighborhood meetings, but let's outreach some more, let's help us do that and build more membership within the group.
But that's a wish, right? Whereas changing the system forces it more, creates it more, rather than just expecting them to get back into the neighborhoods. I mean, to me, there's an irony in what we're talking about. As John said, it's a competition as to who you call, who's going to take care of you, when we have city departments that should be taking care of us. So having to go to a city councillor to get something done, there's a bit of an irony in all that. That's how the city works.
I am actually the chair of the neighborhood subcommittee group, and I had planned on starting to do what Councilor Rourke had done, brought the subcommittee into the different neighborhood groups. And I am going to start that, but I was planning on starting that, and then it became the summer. And no neighborhood groups meet during the summer because it's really difficult to get people to come in and meet during the summer. So it's
We're the only ones that do. See, now you know.
So I am going to start up actually Centerville, I'm planning on having a meeting in Centerville, a subcommittee meeting in Centerville for the neighborhood groups. And then I'm going to move around because I thought that the plan that Councilor Rourke had was a very good one. And I want to continue that in coming out to the neighborhoods and bring the subcommittee into the neighborhoods. That's a really important.
Is there a way, I just like being the neighborhood group, having more partnership by which, for example, emails and internet and those kind of things, it's great and all, but what about if, let's say, there's is it like a newsletter that come out or a, report that come out and go to the neighborhood? And also, is there any way that the council or the city can help provide a little budget to the neighborhood group so they can produce newsletter and send it out to the other residents?
Well, the meeting information is sent out through the website and all of our media. And also, I am working right now, we're trying to work out to see what the process can be to getting our information out to the residents and to the heads of the neighborhood groups. I'm working on that also, because I feel that that's very important, and that is a goal. So there is work in progress, that I'm continuing, and
It's,
so
I'd like to receive one of these in the mail, just to read it.
Yeah.
I know the internet and also the newsletter through the email, it's good and all, but not a lot of all the folks,
right,
can
and I understand
do
that, and that's another consideration.
Is
And
It's gonna be a diversity or some, gonna be the different languages, and this will be diversity.
I've discussed that also, it being in the different languages, because we have Khmer, Spanish, Portuguese, we have many different languages.
Languages here in Lowell.
Yes.
So will be diversity.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It
Okay.
needs to be inclusive.
I wanna thank everyone, Carol, Elaine, all of you for coming
Can I
out.
just leave you with 3 things?
Tonight, no, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting and then we can talk, because.
No, I just wanna leave you 3 notes to follow, so I'm tired of these.
Oh,
phone
we've
calls.
got-
Sure, do
Mike
that,
just has
do
to
that,
run out
do
to
that,
family,
right?
so
Okay, no,
Mike,
that's
Do that,
fine,
yeah.
yeah.
we'll let
Do,
him go.
do that. You write it down, take it with me, and you can share it. Here you go. As motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yep, motion adjourned.
Second. The meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the next neighborhood meeting, August 1st, at the Robinson School, hosted by the Centerville Neighborhood Association. Thank you, Mike, sorry.